Grab your Bibles. Good morning, everybody. It is great to see you all here this morning. I want to welcome anyone who is visiting with us. We're super glad that you're here. We hope that this is just the first of many times that we get to see and get to know you. Now that we are officially past Easter, I think we can officially say that it is springtime. Now, here in the valley, it has been kind of spring season for quite a while, but in my mind, having come from Colorado not that long ago, it is now gardening season. Now, I know I am behind. I am fully aware that I should have seeds in, at least starters and things, and I'm behind. I get that. But in my mind, it's now gardening season. And as I have been working on getting my backyard all fixed up, I have officially finished the enclosure for the garden and gotten a place where I can walk so that I can begin to actually get some plants in the ground. Now, I learned a lot last year as I was gardening in our front yard in just the flower bed, which my wife was not thrilled about because she's like, that's not where gardening plants go, that's where beautiful plants go. I'm like, well, our pepper plants are beautiful. Not quite to what she wanted, but anyway, right, I learned a lot last year, and I still have a lot to learn, especially about gardening in this area, and I look forward to talking with you guys about some of the things I should be doing and changing, and I'm sure there will be lots of lessons I will learn this year. Things like gardening are not only beneficial, right, because I mean, eventually, I hear you get tomatoes. I only got like 1 or 3 last year. I hear that, they create more than that. We had a ton of peppers, which was really great. And I'm hoping that my pepper plant, which survived the year, will survive transplanting to the backyard. That's one of the things I'm really hoping will take off this year, is my peppers. It teaches you a lot of lessons. A lot of different lessons about life and about the scriptures, and it's a good touch point for people in conversations. And it's one of the things that we see in Scripture. These common experiences, these things that we do individually maybe that lots of people do, they become touchstones and places to start and lessons that are taught over and over again. I want us to go over to 1 Corinthians this morning, chapter 3. Paul begins with the analogy of this gardening, this planting, this farming analogy. He says, starting in verse 5, he says, "What is Apollos, and what is Paul, but servants through whom you came to believe, as the Lord assigned to each. I planted, Apollos is watered, but God gives the growth. So neither he who plants nor he who waters is anything, but only God who gives the growth. Who plants and he who waters are one, and each one will receive his wage according to his labor. For we are God's fellow workers, and you are God's field, God's building." When you begin to garden, right, you got to work the soil, you got to get rid of the weeds, you got to add some nutrients into it. That's one of the things I learned last year, is the nutrients in the soil was lacking, and as a result, my plants didn't do so well. When I started to feed my plants, they started to do better, right? So there's an amount of working of the soil that needs to take place. And when you do that prep work, lots of things go better, right? And the person who does the hard work of tilling the soil is not above the guy who then goes behind and then plants. But the one who plants is important. It's important to scatter the seed. It's important to make sure that the spacing is correct, right? It's important that there is both happening. If you only work the soil and you never plant the seed, then what's going to grow? Nothing, right? Nothing grows. Now, if you work the soil and you plant the seed, but you never water the plants, equally you will have problems. Now, one could say it's more fun to water the plants than it is to, say, work the soil, where you're getting your hands dirty and it's hard work. maybe it's more fun to do the planting than it is to do the watering. But each one, each role, each step is vitally important. It's just as important that you work the soil, that you plant the seed, and that you water. And we're all not good at each of those equally. Some of us can take a full-grown plant, put it in the ground, and magically watch it die in just a couple of days. It's amazing how proficient I can be at killing a plant, right? Not all of us are equally good at those things. Some of us, it's not our gift to start from the seed and to watch it grow up. We need the hardiness of a full-grown plant to hopefully get something to last a little bit before we kill it, right? We all have a different role. And as Paul is looking and talking to the church in Corinth, he says, each of us has a role. Each of us has a task. I planted. Paul says, I planted. I went through and I helped to give you a solid beginning. But Apollos has come through and watered. He's tended to you. He has looked after you, and he has seen you grow up. But what is Apollos and who am I? But simply servants of God. We had a role to play. We had a task to do, and we have done that, but God is the one who has given the growth. God is the one who has brought it up. And every farmer knows, and most gardeners understand, that you can plant a good seed, you can prepare the soil, you can water it appropriately, and it still not go well. Ultimately, you can't control what the plant does. I was so excited at the beginning of this year. I had a tomato plant. Like I said, it produced like three tomatoes. However, it survived the year. It survived through the winter, and I kind of pruned everything back. It had kind of been overgrown. I didn't really prune it properly. And I was like, all right, I'm going to get it into its second year. This is going to be great. And it promptly died. Right? It was like, nope, I've run my course, I'm done. Like, rats. Right? We all have our different role to play. God's the one who decides. Right? And maybe my hopes were too high to think that it could go on living forever. Right? Maybe we do that with those people in our life who are examples in the faith. We're like, they're just going to go on forever. They made it through the sickness, and no, they get their reward. Right? We all have our role to play as we grow spiritually, as we help others to grow spiritually, and as others help us to grow spiritually. We all have a role to play. We all have a task to do. God is the one who makes us grow, and we all have a part to play in that. Others have helped you to grow. But ultimately, God is the one who brings about your spiritual maturity and our willingness to work with Him in that task. But he continues with another analogy for those of you who don't like gardening. Maybe this one will work for you. Starting again in verse 9, he says, "For we are God's fellow workers, and you are God's field, God's building. According to the grace that God has given to me, I, like a master builder, have laid a foundation, and somebody else has built upon it. Let each one take care how he builds upon it. For no one can lay a foundation other than that which has been laid, which is Jesus Christ. Now if anyone builds upon that foundation with gold or silver, precious stones, wood, hay, straw, let each one take care how he builds. For no one can lay a foundation." It did not skip. There it goes. "And each one's work will become manifest. For the day will be disclosed, because it will be revealed by fire. Fire will test what sort of work each one has done. If the work that anyone has built upon that foundation survives, he will be receiving that reward. And anyone whose work is burned up, he will suffer that loss, though he himself will be saved, but only through the fire." we understand that a foundation is important. We understand the important role that a foundation plays in something being built and created. And we often think of that when it comes to something like a building. But it's also true of something even as simple as a fence or a wall. There has to be a foundation, something to build to. And if you doubt that, go out to an old fence that is now rotted away from the dirt and is leaning one way or another. It's in trouble because it's lacking that foundation. It's lacking something sturdy to bind to. So it's important that a foundation be laid. And Paul says, I have given you a solid foundation. I have come in and have given to you a solid beginning. Now, we talked a few weeks back about what our foundation should be. And there's a number of things that people build their lives upon. We often find that we build it upon ourselves, thinking that I can control me and I can control the world around me, and we try to white-knuckle it. We try to be these self-made people, but in reality, we are a weak foundation to build upon. We will fail ourselves. We will come up short. Sometimes we might build upon other people, those people in our life who seem to have it all together, but they're people. They will fail. Maybe we build our life upon success or upon wealth or upon something outside of ourselves, but those things ultimately are just as unstable as anything else because it's dependent upon circumstances and it's dependent upon people. Even if you build your life upon the foundation of the church is made up of individuals, and we will inevitably fail. So what we should build our life upon, and what Paul calls us to build our life upon here, is upon Christ. God himself is the only foundation that we can build our life upon that's solid enough. But the question we have to ask ourselves is are we actually building our life upon ourselves or upon God? Are we actually trusting him in every way possible, in every decision that we make? Paul says, I have set before you the gospel message. You have a solid foundation to build upon. The next question becomes, now, how will you build? How will you build? Will you build with sturdy materials? Will you build solidly or not? How will you build? And the materials that you use will determine the stability of the thing being built. For instance, when I rebuilt the fence between me and my neighbor, I used all new materials. That fence is very solid. I expect it to last many, many years, decades, I hope. However, the little fence I built around my garden to keep the dogs out and to keep the kids at bay is made of recycled materials from the old fence, right? It's not going to last as long. It's not expected to last as long. The quality of the materials has seen the weather, experienced those things. So how you build depends. So how are you building upon the foundation of God? If you have indeed set God as the foundation of your life, how are you building? What are you building? What are you building? In 1 Corinthians, we jump over to chapter 12. Paul says this, there is a variety of gifts, but not all, but the same Spirit. There are a variety of services, but the same Lord. And there are a variety of activities, but the same God, who empowers all of them in every one. To each is given the manifestation of the Spirit for the common good. It's important that we understand that we all have a part to play. You have a gift, an ability, a view of the world that is unique to you. We looked a few weeks back at the fact that we were created for good works. You were created for a good work that God has prepared for you and you alone to do. Now here's the question I want to ask this morning as we look at the foundation of our life, and I hope it is built upon God. As we talk about this solid foundation of the gospel that the church seeks to promote and seeks to preach, my question is, what are you building? How are you building? And what part are you playing? We are blessed here to have a variety of resources. We have a number of spaces that we can utilize for ministry. The church here has gone through a number of different seasons where we have had different ministries come and go, different works that have happened. Some of you have played major roles in different ministries that the church here has done. And now you're in a different stage of life. The community is in a different stage of life. And those ministries have done what all gardens do. They grow and they end. And a new season begins. And I see, as I look out and as I think about where we are as a congregation, I see us entering into a new season. And the question that I think we all have to be asking ourselves is, what am I building for God? Not only as I look at my own life and my own spiritual development and ask, okay, how am I building me? How am I nourishing me? How am I growing more like Christ? And that is super important. But I also want to ask, what are you doing to serve the kingdom? What gifts and abilities has God given to you, and how are you utilizing those to develop a ministry? And not all of those ministries that you are a part of and that you do will be something that we can put on the church's website and runs as an operation here out of the building. All right, some of those are individual ministries where you're like, you know what, I'm going to hang out with my neighbor more. I'm going to spend time developing a relationship there and discipling them and loving on them and encouraging them through whatever they're going through. Maybe you have a passion for something that goes on in our community, and there's a group that's already doing a great job with that. We are so grateful to partner with the food pantry, who sees a need within our community and is fulfilling that need in a way that is second to none. To come alongside them and to support them in that. Maybe that's an area where you want to work, where you want to do, and I know a number of you have done that. But maybe you have a passion or a yearning for something else that's going on in our community. Some need that you see that I don't see. If God has placed a weight upon your heart for something that we need to be doing or that you need to be doing, the question I want to ask this morning is, how can we support you in that? Who can you gather around you to support you in that work and to help make it happen? We need to be willing to dream big dreams. We need to be willing to step out on faith and to try some things that will fail. Right? When I started my garden last year, I started with, I think it was 3 tomato plants. And I got ones with suckers, right? So you'd break off the little stem and you'd plant them in the ground and you'd hope they'd grow and they'd last for, a couple hours and then they'd wilt, right? You got to try some things, right? And they will all have a season, but you have to try some things. And what I hear, I'm not picking on anybody here because I know you've said it, but I've heard it everywhere, my whole life, every ministry and every church I've been a part of, whether I was knee-high to a grasshopper or working for them professionally or just interviewing and getting to know them, is, oh, but we've tried that before. That doesn't work here. Okay, it didn't work then. Will it work now? Is that still a need? We have to look at the things that God is placing upon our heart, the needs we see within our community, the resources that we have, and say, okay, how do we develop those? How do we tend to those? How do we plant? How do we water those so that they grow? Some of those plants will die. Some of them will not come to fruition. Some of those attempts will not see success, and that's okay. That's how things happen. But you have to try some things. You have to attempt some things. And next season, maybe you try to plant some more tomatoes. I planted tomatoes. I got 3. Never planting tomatoes again. No. I love tomatoes. They're so good. I got to plant some more tomatoes. Right? I'm going to try again. All right, I'm going to try to water them better. I'm going to try to feed them better. I'm going to try to nourish them better. I'm going to have them in a different spot. We're going to try it a little differently. I hope they work. I may come knocking at your door and say, "You got any tomatoes?" Because mine didn't work this year, right? And I'll try again next year. But that's why we have a community. We also have needs within the church here, right? As we look around, there's a lot of mature folk around here, right? That's wonderful. Are we serving our mature members well? I think we are. Maybe there's some needs there. Maybe there's some things we need to do better there, right? I know we have a wonderful group of people who get together and eat lunch and enjoy fellowship. That's great. But what are we doing for our young, right? I know that I personally, and I'm speaking selfishly here, I'd love to see something more vibrant for my kids, right? Do we have people who are willing to sacrifice and to step forward and say, "Hey, I'm willing to put together a children's Bible hour. I'm willing to put together a event for our younger kids, or I'm willing to host the teens to come over and hang out." How are you serving? What are you building? What passion has God placed upon your heart? Because here's the matter of fact. Myself and the elders cannot dictate what we do. We can help guide it. We can give it counsel. We can give it our blessing. But ultimately, it comes down to the individuals who are willing to put in the time and the effort and the ability to do things. And you will have passions to do things that I would never have thought of. I would never have envisioned flowers and the decor of the church being a ministry to fellow churches. And yet that's what we do. Right? The effort that's put in, the labor that's put in. Right? We have to be willing to think, and you have a unique perspective. You each have a unique perspective to build something different. We all have a part to play. So what are we building? What are your dreams? What passions has God placed upon your heart? Concerns that God has placed in your mind? What needs do you see in our community, whether it be Harlingen as in general, whether it be the Rio Grande Valley, whether it be here within the congregation? What needs do you see? What passions do you have? How can we support you to do those things well? I hope that this week you will do some thinking about what those are. I hope that you'll invite a couple friends over, people that you see who have talents and skills, and say, "Hey, let's get together, let's have lunch, let's talk about the challenges and what this could look like. Let's get together and visit about this." Right? Let's get together and figure this thing out. And eventually, after a few of those conversations, I hope you'll tap me or one of the elders on the shoulder and say, "Hey, we'd like to meet with you about doing this or starting that or seeing if we can come up with a way that could meet this." And it's so far beyond what I can do. But brothers and sisters, let me tell you that the food pantry didn't start out in this huge building serving 150 people every week overnight. It starts out small. Starts out dreaming. starts looking for resources, looking for means, figuring out processes, and it develops over time, and it changes over time to meet the current needs with the current resources. And eventually a ministry runs its course, and it's no longer needed, or it has to change, or it's no longer in our wheelhouse, and it becomes somebody else's. That's happened a number of times here. But let's dream. Let's be about the work. Because God has called us to the work, to live out our faith, to be active. So how is God calling you to build? What is God calling you to build? I hope that you'll not only think about that, but you'll start taking steps to build it. And I look forward to helping you to do just that.